Alrighty everybody, we are out at the pond. Now I grabbed the first two rods that were closest to me. If you were watching the last bit that I was talking about, I talked about 4 different rigs that I've just learned, and I'm going to talk about 2 of them here and then bring out the other 2. 6-aught hook, rigged regular Texas style, so there is support in the head of the worm. This has got a pegged 1/16 ounce slip sinker. So this is something I'll mention in another video. If you don't know how to roll cast, then that's something you need to work on this summer. So there was a roll cast. Hopefully you just saw that on camera. So first thing you do with this, let it go to the bottom. Yep, we're on the bottom now. So what I'll do is I'll start with a 2 or I'll start with a 1. So in this case, I'll start with a 1. So I'm going to just kind of bump it up off the bottom. Give it about 4 or 5 seconds. And I'll bump it twice. I'm taking up, see when you bump it, you've got slack line, right? So when you see me reel, I'm not reeling in the bait. I'm just taking up the slack so that if something bites, I can feel it because the line is tight. So that's how I do it. A couple of 2s, maybe a 1. Like that. Now that is probably the fastest of the retrieves. It's only going to get slower from there. Because I've got this in my hand, I wanted to show you this massive rig that I haven't really, I'm still learning, okay? And I hope you guys all learn that from me, is to continue learning, continue experimenting and growing. Anyway, you can't really roll cast one of these because the lure is so long and the leader is so long. If you do that, you'll hit the ground, okay? So with these, you gotta kind of lob it. Like that. Now I let it sit for a long time, probably another full, at least 5 or 6 seconds, probably more like 10. So what I was doing, I kind of went with, instead of popping the lure, you know, sideways like that, or picking the lure up like that, like we did with the Texas rig, all I did was just reel it. So I've got the line tight, so I'm going to go 1, and you'll feel the resistance in the water. Let it sit for a while, 4 or 5 seconds. 1, 2, let it sit. 1, let it sit. That's 2 out of 4 rigs. I'm going to go get the other 2. Okay, here's the next 2 rigs. And these 2 have been the most productive by far in terms of how quickly you get bites and hookups. So let's talk about the very first mega worm rig that I've tried, and I'm kind of in love with this one, I must admit. So it's set up very similar to a Zoom trick worm. If you watch my episode on the easiest bass rig ever, just like that, except for the fact that it does have an insert rattle in it. And I'm going to fish things a little slower, okay? So I'm going to throw that out there. Again, I'm on a pretty fast reel here. So I like to start with just make sure my line's tight. I like to keep my rod tip kind of down on this, like over the surface of the water. Like 1, slow down, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1. Remember, I'm just taking up slack. I'm not actually reeling it in. I'm just taking up the slack. As soon as I can see that line get a little snug, 1 or 1, 2 right there. 1, 1, 2, like that. And I try to keep things. That one's going to go really far. I shortened it up. I try to keep things a little erratic. This was the second also productive rig that I've tried with mega worms. Now it's essentially a weightless, super shorty Carolina rig, and I've got the hook way down in the lure to where there's no support in the head of the worm, which creates an even more erratic, unpredictable action for the bass. I think this one probably looks a little better. Now, with the super short rig, with the super short leader on there, you can roll cast one of these. It's a touch heavier than the last rig, just a touch. And because you've got a little bit of a leader, you can really sling it out there. It goes a lot farther than you think without having any weight on it. So I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 seconds. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Now sometimes you can go with that 1, 2, or you can pop it straight up every now and then, just to do something crazy. Call it a crazy Ivan. These are actually quite weedless. I'm just absolutely loving the way this rig looks in the water. See, that's that. Oh. Ugh. Man, the last time I tried to show you a technique that worked, I couldn't even do it with this fish out here eating it. Well, there you have it, folks. I mean, there you have it. Look at the size of the worm compared to the size of the fish. I think this worm is actually bigger than this fish. Let's have a go. Yeah, they're nearly the same. They're nearly the same size. I hope you can see that on the camera. So if you think fish won't eat this because it's too big, you're incorrect. Okay, there's the proof of it right there.